I think that for the UAW strike, what really needs to be focused on is that happy medium of the company surviving and making reasonable profit so that they can reinvest it into the product, keep going, but also paying the people who actually make the product well enough. And we've got it right here. This is why this battle is going on, and this is why the UAW, last week, I think I was a little hard saying Shawn Fain needs to be less about the ideology. I should have said, I understand why he's about the ideology, but that's only going to resolve this UAW strike if the manufacturers run out of inventory and money, and they won't. It's not going to happen. If this strike, they'll be closed for 3 months if they have to. They're not going to give in to 100% of the demands. But I can understand when you see, Japan's CEOs usually make 11 times more than their average worker. Germany, 12 times more. France, 15 times more. Italy, 20 times more. I need a sip of water. I'll let you cover the rest of the list.
So Canada, 20 times more too. South Africa, 21. Britain, 22. Mexico, it went up a lot, 47. Venezuela, 50. And whoa, that's a big number, 475 for the United States. That's crazy.
So your typical CEO in the United States is making 475 times more than their average worker. This is why
a lot more than the other
This is
countries.
why, it's an example of why the FedEx employees were like, no, you're going to pay us more. Too bad, so sad. And this is why UAW, it's a wall. The UAW is saying, no, you're going to pay us more. It's a bit of a combination of, in Canada, Japan, or France. It's not that CEOs are making so much less. It's that the employees are actually making more. So there's a bit of an issue here. And I wanted to point out, some people are on the internet complaining about how people used to go buy a vehicle, used to go to the movies, and used to even go grocery shopping wearing a suit. Dressed up. You dress up to go out in public, not wear your darn pajamas. Well, folks, many of us can only afford to go in our ketchup Kraft Dinner stained pajamas to Walmart. That's just the way it is. Pay sucks. Pay sucks compared to the cost of living. So I understand this strike, but I think we need to focus on what's affordable. So Auto News published an article describing plants that UAW members. So this is hilarious. We got to cover this. So I want to cover about how clever these strike techniques have been. So the UAW had plant workers high and low at the plant kind of leaking Facebook information about what plants when would go on strike. So what happened? GM is denying that it affected anything because they think people don't listen to the real news, that no one has a source of real information. I think GM thinks that the normal middle class person can be easily fooled and abused because they've actually come out and said, well, there wasn't an effect, there was no impact, when the reality of it is both Stellantis has been honest about it and said, yeah, there's an impact from this, because Stellantis and GM both found out, from Facebook, apparently the UAW is going to close these plants over here. So let's take parts from these plants and bring them over here. And they brought the parts to the actual plants that ended up getting closed down. And there's other plants that it wasn't just parts. They were like, we're going to be closing down. So there's certain processes at the plant, such as dipping metallic parts. You can't leave a body in, the chemical treatment bath. If you do, the body's ruined. So they're like, okay, take them all out of the bath. We're going to be closing up shop. So they did. They prepped, they got ready for a plant closure. And it was all smoke and mirrors. They ended up closing the other plants. Chaos. Yes, this is going to affect the price. Yes, this is going to affect inventory volume. So if you're thinking December is going to be, if you listen to the general YouTube advice, which is generally always, it's true, generally, December is a good time to buy a vehicle. It's not going to be a good time to buy a vehicle this year. I'm definitely not seeing it that way for this year. So get your Christmas present early, folks, and save thousands. So the exact information on this is that the UAW members said that they're going to be targeting Ford's Lavona transmission plant in Michigan, its Lima engine plant in Ohio, and the Cleveland engine number 1 facility. The article claimed that Stellantis engine and transmission plants in Indiana and Michigan would also be closing, and that 3 GM plants across 3 states were also likely strike targets. Very comical. So if you want a full episode on just this, and it's like a long episode on just this, instead of like 7-8 minutes here, you'll get it for about 40 minutes. This is from TYT, so the Young Turks. Also, they go on to cover how the UAW through Facebook and social media were saying strike preparation and contingency planning is part of our normal process in a contract negotiation year. So basically you've got the companies here just saying like, hey, it's normal for us to kind of try to guess at what's going to be happening. And that the UAW made it very clear that the strike was possible, and we did everything we needed to do to protect the business. So Stellantis was actually pretty open. They said, yeah, we did what we thought would be the right moves to protect ourselves, to protect our product, our prices, our inventory, our production levels. And Stellantis here, the Stellantis spokesperson, is basically saying, yeah, they got us. They got us. We've got egg on our face. But I think it's good that they're open and honest about it, saying we tried to deal with the situation. We got it wrong. GM just saying no. So that's kind of silly. So there's 38 parts, and not all of them, but there's 38 parts and distribution centers across the United States at GM and Stellantis. That's affecting 5,600 workers, and that's adding 5,600 workers to the 12,700 workers already on strike. Remember, $825 million, paying 150,000 workers $500 a week. This can go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, but the UAW President Shawn Fain is setting things up to go on for much longer than that, because now there's, about 18,000 workers on strike, 18,100 workers on strike of the 150,000 workers. Clever. And I don't think that the manufacturers can, cry foul play in all of this, because I think both sides are going to be doing what they can to try to get what they feel they need to get. So that's what's going on here, folks. This is going to be a long strike. This is going to be a costly strike. Manufacturers have inventory. The UAW has money, and the UAW isn't even doing a full strike, which is in their best interest, because these 18,100 striking workers have a very big effect, costing these companies billions of dollars per week. And that's just the way it's going to happen. And Biden is going to be joining the striking workers tomorrow. So this week, depending on when you're watching this, so I'll say this week, the week of the 25th to the 29th of September, Biden is going to be joining the striking workers. He's called himself the most pro-union president ever. When you've got the president, when you feel like the president's really on your side, it's not encouraging things to settle up quickly. So I don't expect manufacturers to give in to all the demands, but I think Ford's showing good faith, and I think it's going to end at Ford much sooner. We'll see. A lot of this is due because of electric vehicles, because these companies would truly have a ton of money to give out to their workers. They didn't have it in the back of their head that they've got to play catch up when it comes to electric vehicles. And they've got carbon taxes to either pay to the government or billions of dollars to give to Tesla to buy carbon credits, because they're not cutting it for the miles per gallon. So lots of money going towards that, but the all EV aspect to all of this is concerning, because if battery prices don't come down, none of us, not none of us, but most of us won't be able to afford these vehicles. And Ford, GM, and Stellantis are needing to sell their gas guzzlers at a higher price because they need more profit from those vehicles to fund the EV push, which is forced on them. And they also need, they need a combination of more electric vehicles being sold and less volume on those gas guzzlers to avoid these fines. They're essentially fines. Even if you're paying for carbon credits and paying Tesla for carbon credits, it's just to avoid fines. So let's call them what it is. These are fines through and through. So there's the slide from earlier in the show. 75% of polled individuals in the US, 75% are on board and agree with the United Auto Workers. 19% agree with the US auto companies, and I guess neither. People that just don't want to talk to CNN is 2%. I'm surprised it's not higher.